I still remember the way the morning light looked when everything started, soft and pale through the curtains, the kind of light that normally makes you want to stay in bed a little longer. But that day, it felt different. Heavy. Almost like the sun itself was warning me to stay still because stepping into the day would change things I could never change back. I was barely awake when my phone vibrated next to my pillow. At first, I thought it was an alarm, but then I heard the ringtone and reached for it. The moment I saw the name on the screen, any leftover sleep disappeared from my body. Camille. And not just Camille, but Camille calling at 6 in the morning, when she knew perfectly well that I worked late nights and never woke up this early unless the world was ending or something close to it. With her, early morning usually meant drama she could not contain, or chaos she wanted me to absorb for her. But nothing in my entire history with her prepared me for the sentence she delivered the moment I answered. The house is mine now. You are not getting anything. I claimed it. Her voice was sharp, breathless almost, like she had been pacing for hours waiting to say those words. And before I could even form a single question, she hung up. No explanation. No reasoning. No attempt at conversation. Just that declaration dropped like a grenade into my morning. I stared at the phone, wondering if I had imagined it. But it was real. Camille had called me just to announce that she had taken the house. Our parents' house. The house we grew up in. The house we had never actually settled legally because we were too busy surviving life after losing them. For a long moment, I lay there in bed trying to understand the logic behind her claim. Camille had always been the kind of person who decided something was hers simply because she wanted it. She grew up feeling like she had to fight for everything, and somehow that created a belief inside her that what she desired was automatically entitled to her. I spent my whole childhood watching her turn small misunderstandings into battles, simple disagreements into betrayals. But taking the house without telling me, claiming it like we were enemies in some war. Only she was fighting, was new even for her. I sat up, pushed my hair back, and tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I texted her. Nothing. I sent another message. Still nothing. Camille was not avoiding me accidentally. She was doing it on purpose. She wanted to be the one controlling the narrative, the one who hit first and vanished. The more I thought about it, the more my chest tightened. There was no reason for her to behave like this except jealousy, fear, or some twisted sense of justice that existed only in her imagination. Our relationship had never been easy. We were not close in the way sisters on television are close, sharing secrets and borrowing clothes and laughing until sunrise. We were the opposite. Every milestone in my life Camille treated like an attack. My graduation, my first job, even my smallest accomplishments became proof to her that life was unfair. And I never understood how to fix it. I spent years shrinking myself to make her feel bigger. It never worked. So when she called that morning claiming the house was hers, it felt like every unresolved wound, every old resentment, every unspoken tension had suddenly taken shape and stood at the foot of my bed waiting for me to look at it. I tried to convince myself that maybe she was mistaken. Maybe someone had given her wrong information. But deep down I knew Camille too well. She did not make mistakes like that. She declared things. She believed things. She forced things. And I knew I could not sit around waiting for her to decide the next part of my life. Within an hour I was in my car, barely aware of the clothes I threw on, my hair still unbrushed. The drive back to our hometown felt longer than usual. The highway stretched out like it was trying to buy me time to prepare for whatever waited. I kept replaying the phone call in my head, the sharpness of her voice, the way she sounded almost victorious. It did not make sense. Camille had never taken care of the house. She barely visited mom and dad when they were alive unless she wanted money or an argument. She never acted like the house meant anything to her. So why now? As I drove, memories of us as kids flickered through my mind. Camille pushing me aside to reach the top cabinet where mom kept the marshmallows. Camille stealing my sweaters and pretending she did not. Camille blamed me for things I did not do just to watch me get scolded. But also Camille sitting next to me on stormy nights when I was scared. Camille brushing my hair the year I broke my wrist. Camille cried with me at our parents' funeral, even if she pretended later she did not remember it. Our relationship was complicated, painful, but layered with the kind of history only two girls raised under the same roof could understand. By the time I reached our street, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The house looked exactly the same from the outside, but I felt something different around it, like a tension in the air. Then I saw it. A for sale sign planted crookedly in the front yard, bright red and impossible to ignore. I froze. My breath left my body so fast it felt like I had been punched. She had not just claimed the house. She had already taken the next step. She was selling it. Without telling me. Without asking me. Without giving me a chance to breathe. I got out of the car slowly, walking toward the house like every step might confirm a nightmare I did not want to believe in. I reached the porch stairs, lifted my hand to knock, and my phone rang again. An unknown number. I answered because at that point I had nothing left to lose. A woman introduced herself as Melissa from Bright Horizon Realty, and then she asked if I was ready for the meeting tomorrow to discuss pricing for the house I owned. The house I owned. Her exact words. And right there, the world shifted under my feet. When Melissa, the realtor, said the words "the house you own," it felt like the air around me thinned for a moment. I stood there on the porch staring at the dusty old front door of the house I had known my entire life, while her voice floated through the phone like she was talking about something small, something ordinary, something that would not change the direction of a family. But her words were anything but ordinary. I remember blinking a few times, unsure if she had made a mistake. Maybe she mixed me up with someone else. Maybe she had called the wrong sibling. Maybe she meant the house we owned. But no. She said it clearly. The house you own. My stomach tightened, and for a moment I forgot how to speak. I finally managed to say, "I am sorry, what did you say?" And she repeated it, even calmer this time, as if she was confirming the pickup time for dry cleaning. The house you own. I could meet you tomorrow morning to discuss pricing if that still works for you. Still works for you. As if I knew any of this was happening. As if I had been part of the decision to list the house. As if I had agreed to anything. I leaned against the porch railing because my knees felt weak, and all I could say was, "Yes, of course, thank you." Even though inside my mind, I was anything but calm. Nothing made sense. Camille had told me she claimed the house. She said it like she had signed something official, like it was already done. She had spoken with all the confidence of someone who believed she had every right to do what she did. But now a stranger was telling me I was the sole owner. When I hung up, I did not go inside the house. Something inside me resisted. The windows were dark. The curtains were drawn tight. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would discover next. I walked back to my car and sat inside with my hands gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead as if the answer would appear between the trees. I tried calling Camille again. Straight to voicemail. Her silence was not an accident. She did not want to hear my voice. She wanted control. She wanted the narrative to be whatever she shaped it into. And right now that narrative was a lie. Driving away from the house, my mind raced through every memory tied to it. The uneven wooden stairs I used to slide down as a kid. The kitchen where Mom would stand humming while cooking. The backyard where Dad used to fix everything with a kind of stubborn confidence as if no problem was ever too big for him. The idea that Camille would try to take that away from me, erase me from it, claim it as her own, made something sharp move under my ribs. Not just anger. Something deeper. Something like betrayal mixed with disbelief. That night I checked into a motel because I could not bring myself to leave town. I felt suspended between the past and the present, unsure where I belonged. I sat on the bed with the motel lamp casting dull yellow light across the room, and I kept replaying my childhood, trying to figure out what moment led to this. Was it when Camille felt overshadowed by me in school? Was it when Dad praised me for my grades? Was it when I moved out for college and she stayed behind? Was it when our parents died and we each handled grief differently? Maybe she always felt like the house represented something. Love. Worth. Belonging. Maybe she believed that if she owned the house, she owned the last piece of our parents. I could not sleep that night. I just lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mixture of sadness, confusion, and a growing sense of something else. Something like resolve. Camille had crossed a line. Not accidentally. Not impulsively. She had marched into a realtor's office and tried to sell the house behind my back. That took planning. That took audacity. That took the willingness to erase me completely from something that belonged to both of us. Or at least, that is what I thought. The next morning, I met Melissa at a little coffee shop downtown. She was older, with warm eyes and a soft smile that made me feel instantly calmer. She had a folder in front of her, along with a cup of coffee and a blueberry muffin she barely touched. She greeted me politely, then began explaining the entire situation with a careful tone, as if she sensed that my family dynamics were delicate and full of invisible landmines. She told me that Camille had come into the office insisting she was the sole owner of the house. She said Camille had refused to provide documentation, claiming the paperwork was lost, and she pressured their staff to trust her without legal proof. But once the office pulled up the county records, everything changed. Melissa looked almost apologetic as she said, "The property is listed under your name only. There is no record of shared ownership." Camille was not happy when we told her that. She paused, then added, "She seemed very emotional about it." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because describing Camille as emotional was an understatement. She was probably furious, embarrassed, and scrambling for some way to regain control. But the real blow hit me when Melissa repeated that there was no shared ownership. It was mine. Only mine. Legally. I had no memory of any of this. But then Melissa explained something I never expected. Years earlier, my father had transferred his portion to me. Quietly. Privately. The paperwork was filed correctly before he passed. And because my mother never updated her portion, everything defaulted legally to me. It hit me all at once. Camille did not just lose a house she thought she owned. She learned from a stranger that she never owned any part of it. Not even a fraction. That humiliation alone would have changed her entire world in a single instant. And she tried to hide it from me by pretending she had one. Walking out of the coffee shop, I saw Camille across the street, pacing aggressively, arms crossed like she had steam rising off her skin. The moment she spotted me, she stormed over with her eyes sharp and blazing. "You stole my home." Her voice cracked with something between rage and heartbreak. That moment, standing in the middle of the sidewalk with her anger spilling onto me like boiling water, I realized something important. This was not just about the house. It never had been. This was about everything we never said. Everything we never healed. Everything we buried under years of distance. And the real story was just beginning. When Camille stormed across the street toward me, it felt like the whole town paused. Like the sidewalk, the coffee shop windows, even the air around us recognized the collision that had been brewing for years. She walked with her shoulders stiff and her jaw tight, her eyes locked on mine with a heat that made my pulse quicken. I had seen her angry before. Furious. Unpredictable. But this was different. This was the kind of anger born from humiliation, the kind that comes when someone's entire reality cracks open and exposes the truth they never wanted to face. "You stole my home." Those were her first words, thrown at me like stones. She said it so loudly a couple walking by turned their heads. Part of me wanted to disappear, and part of me wanted to stand taller. I took a slow breath and tried to speak gently, because shouting never worked with her. Camille, you know I did not. She cut me off. Do not pretend. Do not act innocent. You always take everything from me. Her voice was shaking, and she looked like she had barely slept. Her hair was messy. Her mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She was unraveling right in front of me, but she refused to let herself break. I tried to explain the paperwork. How Dad had transferred his share to me years ago. How he never told her because he knew she would react exactly like this. I tried to tell her that I did not even remember the details because it all happened during a time when life moved too fast and everything felt heavy. But she had built her story already, and she clung to it like a lifeline. You think I am stupid. You think I did not know Mom wanted me to have that house. She promised me. She told me I would be the one to keep it. Not you. Her voice cracked again in the last part, and for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. Pain. Not mine, but hers. A kind of pain I had not recognized before because she never allowed it to surface. Camille was always loud, always defensive, always in attack mode. But now the truth spilled through the cracks. This was not about greed. This was not about ownership. This was about belonging. About losing our parents and feeling like the world took too much from her too quickly. I stepped closer, trying to soften my tone. Camille, you know Mom loved both of us. And Dad, he did what he thought was best. He worried about you back then. He worried about your choices. Wrong thing to say. Her face twisted at the word choices. She stepped back like I had slapped her. So that is what you think of me. That I make bad choices. That I ruin everything. That I cannot be trusted. She laughed, but it was a cracked, almost broken kind of laugh. That explains everything, Emily. That is why he gave it to you. She turned her face away, and for a moment, I saw the girl she used to be. The girl who always felt like she had to shout to be heard. The girl who thought being older meant being responsible for everything and then resented me for being the younger, softer one. The girl who lost her footing when our parents died and never found it again. I took a deep breath. Camille, listen to me. I did not steal anything from you. I did not ask for the house. I did not even remember I owned it until yesterday. We can figure something out. There is no reason for us to fight. But she was not ready to hear that. She pushed forward again, voice rising. You always act reasonable. You always act calm. Like you are better than me. Like you understand everything. But you do not. You do not know what I have been going through. You do not know what it feels like to be alone. All these years you left me here. You left me with all of this. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had not thought about how my absence felt for her. When I moved away, it was because I could not breathe in that house anymore. I needed space. I needed a chance to build a life that was not soaked in grief and tension. I did not leave to punish her. But maybe, to her, it felt like I did. I tried again. Camille, I was hurting too. I lost them too. She nodded once, but it was a cold nod. You moved on. I stayed. I am the one who stayed in this town. I am the one who kept the memories alive. I am the one who visited the house on holidays. And now you want to take the last thing I have left. I opened my mouth to respond, but she stepped even closer, lowering her voice. You know what hurts the most. I always felt like Mom and Dad saw you as the one who would take care of things. You. Not me. And I hated that. I hated feeling like the extra. Like the mistake. Like the burden. Hearing her say those words made my heart ache. I had no idea she carried that weight. And she had been carrying it for years. Decades maybe. But Camille was not someone who asked for help. She was someone who yelled instead of apologizing, ran instead of admitting fear, and attacked instead of admitting sadness. I whispered, "You were never the burden." "Never." But she looked at me like she did not believe a word. Or maybe she could not afford to believe it after holding the opposite belief for so long. Then her expression hardened again. "But that house was supposed to be mine. I deserved it," she said deservedly with a sharpness that made everything click. This was not about fairness. This was not about legality. This was about identity. She needed something, anything, to prove she mattered, that she had value, that she still had a place in a world that kept taking things from her. But the truth was already out. And she knew it. The humiliation of being told she owned nothing, not even a tiny piece, had shattered the last bit of pride she clung to. She whispered one more sentence before walking away. "I will fight you. I am not letting this go." I watched her back as she disappeared down the street, and a cold truth settled inside me. Camille was not fighting for the house. She was fighting for her story. And she could not accept a version where she was not the one in control. What I did not realize then was that this conflict would not end with anger. It would end with a kind of revenge neither of us expected, one that would reshape everything between us. After that confrontation with Camille on the sidewalk, I spent the next few days in a strange emotional fog. It was the kind of heaviness where your mind feels full but empty at the same time, like you are carrying too much and not enough all at once. I kept replaying every word she had shouted, every crack in her voice, every moment where I saw pieces of the sister I used to know buried under layers of hurt she refused to acknowledge. I tried to sleep. Tried to distract myself. Tried to think clearly. But nothing worked. There was this knot inside me, tight and painful, and I knew the only way to unravel it was to face everything head-on. But I was not ready yet. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not even physically. So I stayed in that motel for a little longer, letting time stretch out and letting silence do what conversations could not. Then on the third morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Melissa, the realtor. It was short and strangely gentle for someone who barely knew me. She wrote that Camille had returned to their office, that she had not yelled this time, that she had seemed different. Quiet. Tired. And that she wanted to leave something for me if I chose to pick it up. For a moment I thought about ignoring the message. I felt so emotionally drained that the thought of another confrontation, even through a handwritten note, made my chest tighten. But curiosity has a strange pull, and this was not the kind of thing you ignore. If Camille had written something instead of screaming it, it had to be important. So I drove to the real estate office, feeling my heart thud a little harder with each mile. When I stepped into the office, the air smelled faintly of fresh paper and coffee. Melissa greeted me with the same calm kindness she always had. She handed me a small white envelope, slightly bent on one corner like Camille had been holding it too tightly. There was no name written on the outside. Just a plain envelope that suddenly felt heavier than it should have been. Melissa told me Camille had dropped it off early that morning without saying much. She simply asked Melissa to make sure I received it. No arguments. No theatrics. Just a quiet request. That alone told me something had shifted. I walked back to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a full minute before opening it. My fingers hesitated, and I did not understand why. Maybe because it had been years since Camille had given me anything that was not wrapped in anger or resentment. Maybe because I was scared of what she would say. Or maybe because part of me still believed she was incapable of vulnerability, and I was not prepared to see a side of her I had given up on. But I opened the envelope anyway. Inside was a single piece of folded paper. Her handwriting was instantly recognizable. Messy. Slanted. Letters pressed too hard, like her emotions were always leaking into the ink. When I unfolded it, I saw only 2 sentences. But they hit me harder than all the yelling she had done earlier. I cannot lose the last thing that still feels like family to me. If you sell it, please let me keep something. Anything. Even a room. My breath caught in my throat. Not because the words were dramatic. They were not. They were simple. Almost childlike in their desperation. But they were honest. And honesty was something Camille rarely allowed herself to show. She built her identity around being strong, combative, and unapologetic. But those two sentences peeled all of that away. They revealed the scared sister underneath, the one who never really healed from losing our parents, the one who had spent years pretending she did not care to shield herself from the truth that she cared too much. For the first time in a long time, I felt something other than anger toward her. I felt her loneliness. Her fear. Her exhaustion. I could picture Camille sitting somewhere, maybe in her car or in that house, gripping a pen too tightly while trying to put her feelings into words without letting them betray her. She had always expressed pain through rage, but this time, the rage had burned itself out. What was left was the truth she had been choking on for years. I sat there in my car holding that note, and all the memories that used to hurt me suddenly hurt differently. I saw her crying in our room when she was 12 because the other girls at school made fun of her. I saw her pacing the hallway after Dad's heart attack, trying to act angry when she was really scared. I saw her standing next to me at Mom's funeral wearing a brave face that fooled everyone except me. Camille had always felt like she had to carry grief alone, like she was not allowed to fall apart. And in doing so, she had slowly disconnected from everyone who could have helped her. The note felt like a quiet confession. A surrender. A plea. It was everything she could never say out loud. And reading it forced me to admit something too. I had walked away from her. I had left town because I needed to breathe. Because I needed distance from her anger and her chaos. Because I was tired of being the responsible one, the calm one, the one who had to fix everything. I never meant to leave her alone. But intent does not erase the impact. She had stayed behind with the memories, with the house, with all the emotional debris left over from our parents' deaths. And she had carried it the only way she knew how. Badly. But she carried it. The house was more than a building to her. It was her anchor. The last proof that she was not entirely alone in the world. She did not want the house because of money or greed. She wanted it because it made her feel connected to something bigger than herself. It made her feel like she still had roots. That she still had a place where she belonged. And as much as I hated to admit it, the note softened something in me. It reminded me that family is complicated, messy, and painful. But it also reminded me that sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who are hurting the most. Sitting in that parking lot, reading Camille's shaky handwriting, I felt the shift begin inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But clarity. Understanding. And a realization that the next part of this story would not be about winning or losing. It would be about choosing the kind of person I wanted to be in the middle of a storm that had already lasted far too long. After I finished reading Camille's note, I sat there for a long time staring at the parking lot pavement through the windshield, letting the weight of her words settle into the quiet. I had come back to town expecting a fight, expecting more lies, expecting another explosion from a sister who had built her identity around conflict. But instead I was holding a trembling confession, one that pulled apart every assumption I had made about her motives. The truth was simple and heartbreaking. Camille was terrified of losing the last piece of family she felt she had left. I took a slow breath and folded the paper back into the envelope, my fingers shaking a little as I did it. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me, something that made the anger drain out and leaves a different kind of clarity behind. She was hurting. She was scared. But that did not erase the fact that she had tried to steal the house from me. It did not erase the fact that she went behind my back to sell something that legally belonged to me alone. And it did not erase the fact that if the paperwork had turned out differently, she would have gladly cut me out without hesitation. Pain does not excuse cruelty. Fear does not excuse betrayal. And love, no matter how complicated, does not erase consequences. That was the moment I realized that the ending to this story needed to be fair, but not soft. It needed to be rooted in compassion, but guided by boundaries I had spent my whole life avoiding. It needed to be revenge, but a different kind, the kind that restores balance instead of burning everything down. I drove back to the house that afternoon, parking in the same spot Dad used to park his old truck. I walked up the porch steps and unlocked the door with the spare key I still carried on my keychain. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt heavy with memories. The floorboards gave their familiar creak, and the sunlight filtered through the dusty curtains like it was trying to remember what warmth felt like. This house had been waiting for something for a long time. Maybe for one of us to finally step in and choose a future instead of clinging to the past. I waited there in the living room for Camille to arrive. I had texted her simply saying, "Come to the house. We need to talk." She did not respond, but I knew she would come. And she did. About 40 minutes later, I heard her car pull up, then the slow, hesitant steps on the porch. When she opened the door, she looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Fragile in a way she had tried to hide for years. She stood in the doorway clutching her bag like a shield. I held the envelope in my hand and gently lifted it as she stepped inside. She looked down at it, then away, embarrassed. Her voice barely rose above a whisper when she said, "I did not know how else to say it." For a moment, I said nothing. I just let the silence fill the space between us. Then I said softly, "Camille, this house is legally mine. You know that now." Her eyes closed for a second, and I saw her swallow hard. "But I also know why you want it. Why does it matters? Why losing it feels like losing Mom and Dad all over again." Her eyes opened, and for the first time since they died, I saw pure vulnerability in her expression. "But wanting something does not mean you get it," I continued. "And trying to take it behind my back was wrong. You hurt me. Deeply. And there are going to be consequences." She looked up quickly, fear flickering across her face, but I held my ground. For once in our lives, I did not soften. I did not shrink. I did not become the version of myself she always expected, the sister who forgave too easily and carried too much responsibility. "Here is the consequence," I said. "I am not selling this house. Not now. Maybe not for a long time." Her eyebrows pulled together in a tense line. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand gently. "You will not profit from it. You will not decide anything about it. You will not list it behind my back, and you will not pretend it belongs to you. I am the owner. Not because I fought for it, but because Dad trusted me with it. And you broke that trust when you tried to push me out." She looked down, and for a moment I saw the guilt hit her fully. Her shoulders sagged. She whispered, "Emily, I did not know what I was doing." I nodded. "Maybe not. But now you will learn." I let the next sentence sit on my tongue for a moment, letting its weight settle before I said it. "You can live here if you want. Choose a room. Make it yours. But you do so under my conditions. My boundaries. My ownership. And if you ever try to take advantage of me again, or go behind my back again, you will lose that privilege instantly. I will not give you another chance." She froze, staring at me like she did not expect me to be capable of saying something like that. She had spent her entire life believing I was the easy one. The forgiving one. The soft one. And maybe that used to be true. But not anymore. I watched her eyes fill with tears. Not dramatic ones. Not the theatrical kind she used to weaponize. Whenever she wanted something. These were different. Quiet. Real. She had expected to either win or lose everything. She never expected an ending where she could stay, but not control. Belong, but not dominate. Be included, but under rules she did not set. That was the revenge she never saw coming. Not cutting her off. Not throwing her out. Not taking the house and locking her out of it forever. No. My revenge was forcing her to live with the truth. The truth that she did not own what she tried to steal. The truth that I held the power. The truth that she could stay only because I allowed it, not because she claimed it. The truth that love could exist, but only on healthy terms. She finally whispered, "Thank you," even though I could tell it tasted unfamiliar in her mouth. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I stepped back, letting her look around the house, letting her see it with new eyes. For the first time, she was not seeing it as something she expected to inherit or something she felt entitled to. She was seeing it as a home she had to earn her place in. And that shifted the entire energy of the room. Over the next months she softened. Not completely. Not magically. But gradually. She repaired things around the house. She planted a small herb garden in the backyard. She replaced the old curtains and cleaned the attic. She sent me photos. Updates. Small gestures that showed effort, not entitlement. And every time I walked through the door of that house, I felt something settle inside me. Not just peace. Not just closure. But power. The power to rewrite a dynamic that had been broken for years. The power to give Camille a place to stay without letting her take advantage of me. The power to choose a version of our relationship that did not crush me the way it used to. That was the revenge. Not hurting her. But taking back control. And making her face the consequences of her own actions every single day she lived under my roof on my terms. And at the end of it all, I realized something. Revenge does not always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like truth. Sometimes it looks like refusing to repeat the pain that shaped you. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is showing someone that you grew into the person they never believed you could be. And if you felt something in this story, if you saw a piece of yourself in it, then stay with me. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications, because I have more real, raw stories coming your way. Your support means more than you know.